Thank you all for meeting with me. You're all doing some wonderful work destroying the world, but I think it's probably time for us to reevaluate.
Yeah, sorry for the interruption, but I think we're in the wrong meeting. We're not here to destroy the world. We're here to save it. You see, we are some of the leading leaders of liberal causes, and I'm with the Human Rights Campaign, who focus on LGBTQ plus and trans rights. You see, I have the equal sign to let you know that I'm a good person.
Oh, excuse me, women's reproductive rights.
Climate.
Free Palestine. Open borders.
I misspoke before. You guys are not destroying the world, okay? You are saving the world.
Whoa, what's up with those scare quotes?
Pretty sure I didn't use scare quotes when I said saving the world.
That's good.
The important thing to keep in mind is that there's a big election coming up, and you and I, we're all on the same page, okay? So if we want Biden to win, he needs to win in order for us to save the world. If we want Biden to win, you folks, how can I say this? You might need to tone it down just.
Tone down what?
Oh, that's a good question. You're women's reproductive rights, right? Okay. Excellent branding, by the way. It's much easier on the ears than baby murder, so kudos to you on that one. But opposing any restrictions all the way through to the 9th month, I mean, you see how you're kind of tipping your hand, right? Makes people think, wait, maybe they actually want to kill babies. And we do, obviously.
No, we don't.
Oh.
No, we don't. We don't.
Right. We don't. But you see how it can kind of look that way. So that's all I'm saying. You know, let's tone it down. And you, immigration, clearly we don't want a completely open border that undermines any sense of national sovereignty, driving down wages for the working class and overtaxing the welfare state. So let's go a bit easy there too. I mean, why not something like this? Why not something like diversity is our...
Are you trying to say diversity is our strength?
Yes! How do you say that without laughing? Oh my gosh. I can't even get through it. This is head de moi. My sides. My goodness. Okay, what about you? Pro-Palestine. You are, I'm going to say this. You're kind of coming across like you just want to wipe Israel off the map and kill all the Jews.
We do want to wipe Israel off the map and kill all the Jews.
Of course, yes. And that's awesome. I'm all for that. I love that. But you need to pretend like you don't want to wipe Israel off the map and kill all the Jews.
Why?
Excuse me?
I mean, we're pretty clear in our position, and most young people and everyone on college campuses, and half the Democratic Party, of course, still support us.
Yeah, it's cool now.
You may have a point there. You might be the only person in here that can be as evil as you want to be and get away with it. All right, still, let's think about tactics. Okay, do you think that occupying bridges and blocking traffic is somehow winning people over to your cause?
Yeah, and making people hate us by blocking traffic is our thing. He's stealing our thing!
You're not stealing your thing. You must die. We will kill you all.
See, this is what I'm talking about. I mean, okay, I love the homicidal thing that you got going on there. I really dig it, okay? But maybe market it just a little bit differently. Like the serial killer that everyone thinks is such a sweet guy, you know? He's got 27 bodies in the basement, but he's like, coaching Little League. That's what I want. Be that guy.
Death to America.
You know, the funny thing is, you don't even look Middle Eastern. Am I wrong, people? Am I wrong?
I'm not. I actually grew up on Long Island, but my parents sent me to college. Death to America.
HRC guy, you have been going over the top as well.
Well, it's important for us, they, them, to be accepted just like everyone else.
Yes, of course. And convincing people that they're intolerant for not wanting men to get naked in women's locker rooms. I guess that's genius. I mean, come on, it's next level stuff. All right, but insisting that your children be mutilated. I mean, come on, let's turn people off, you guys. I mean, not everyone, obviously, but until the election, can we just all pretend for a few months not to be crazed, lunatic, homicidal extremists?
Extremist? No, it's my body, Donald J. Trump. Donald Trump.
You will obey me. Sorry. Glad we're all on the same page, though. So, how do you do it? You know? When I do evil stuff, it seems like nobody likes me. When you do it, everyone finds you sympathetic.
Well, see, my people are oppressed victims. So we can rape, murder, and call for genocide, and it's pretty much totally justified.
Well done, Ahmed. Well done.
Hey you! Are you enjoying these videos? Then I have a loose suggestion for you. Why don't you like it?
Okay, guys. In the spirit of a story, in the spirit of ancient legends, I'm going to share with you in this fun episode. Yeah, we're going to have fun. I'm going to share with you the legend of the actor who audited Arizona. I could not resist of giving this topic its own program because in the teaching moment, it is how invariably conservatives get conquered. It's a prime example of how conservatives, and yes, I'm a conservative, are their own worst enemies. You're going to want to pay attention. Let's see. Yeah, many of you might have been here with me for 6 years almost now talking about this, getting close. Many of you probably followed all my previous YouTube stuff. If you're one of those, you've been with me 16. More than 16, 18 years. But this one deserves its own category. It really does. Because it's the legend of the actor who audited Arizona and other modern fables. Let me tell you how this started. It's very funny. I'm going to tell you how it started, and I'm going to show you how it ended, because I think it all kind of goes into this interesting story. And by the way, maybe a lot of you are under snow today. If you're in the mountains are really across the country, you know, from west to east, been hammered, right? Been hammered with snow. It's cold out there. Anyway, let me show you how this particular story began, okay? Some of you may have throughout history seen this particular photo. You see this weird shack, guys up on top, guys standing around. But that fellow standing dead center off right, meaning one over from the center, right? And that young fellow is the future President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, right there. Okay, now where this is, and you've seen this photo, has to do with a place called Oak Island, right? Oak Island. We're going to talk about this, but it's important, so you understand this. So there's Franklin Delano Roosevelt on Oak Island. Here is Oak Island. It's the History Channel's #1 series ever. Been going on for 16 years. Here is myself doing exploration. There's the Laguna brothers in the background. Now, let me share with you how this started, because it's really kind of interesting. I'm doing a bunch of work yesterday. A lot of my stuff is, you know, at my desk. And a ping that comes across on Twitter, somebody's talking about me. And it's somebody who follows me. And this is Bad Kitty Unleashed. And I see this post and it's like, fire blaze, fire blaze, fire blaze, fire blaze, fire blaze. Doesn't anyone know why an Oak Island TV actor audited an election? Seriously, folks, have I ever steered you wrong? Well, it was a combination of two posts. So that's the second post. Here's the one that before. Bad Kitty Unleashed. Oak Island is calling you, Jovan Pulitzer. Quite the election specialist. And so I'm getting called out. And I'm getting called out by somebody who has 158,000 plus followers. All they do is post on Twitter. They've posted over 200,000 posts. I thought I post a lot. No, I don't even get a fourth of that. Over 260 or 280,000 posts. Or 240,000 posts. And here it is, Bad Kitty Unleashed. Now, I want you to hear what it says. Free spirit and cool cat at heart. Truth will always prevail. Count on it. Accuracy is my motive. If you ever see something wrong, just tell me. Accuracy is my motive. But the post was quite the election specialist, a TV actor. Okay. I'm going to jump to the end, if that's okay. And then I'm going to connect it together. When you have somebody that has that many followers, it's going to elicit a lot of reactions. The post that was just posted is hey, thought you would like this, Professor Clements and Joel Altman. Look at it. You can see it. It's normally the type of people that do this kind of stuff. And I think it's interesting because I've been focusing hard on Georgia and a lot of people down in Georgia that have just done stupid ass things. That this comes up, but nonetheless, I'm not going to assume anything. And come on, where can I get that? Hang on, here. Dang it! I've lost my control on this to show you the end. So let me see what I do here to gain that back. I'm going to click a button. Can I get to it? No, I can't. Okay, let me figure out how to do this for a moment. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to try to click something. Something's kind of gone wrong with my screen. Hang on. Ironic cross. Jovan's a legend. Let me just see if it unlocks my screen. Damn it. Something's up with my screen. Okay, here's what's going to happen. Okay. I cannot talk about when, where, or how either put, and this is just somebody in chat, just to let you know. I cannot talk about when, where, and how I'm either called in for a security briefing or talk to the president or do certain things of that nature. That's not social media material. And when those things happen, everybody who attends has to leave their cell phones behind. You're sworn to secrecy, the whole bit. So I want to let you know, although it's kind of titillating to ask that, that's just not how it works. And you won't hear that from me because that would be violating confidence. You're going to see my screen glitch for a moment. I will not be gone. Hang on 1 second. Here it goes. Okay, I should be back in the feed now. Let's see, it went out and good. I got control of it again. So it takes a second. Sometimes the system has to reset. So many people get on different chats across the channels and stuff. The system has to reset. So here I am. Okay, back on. The camera looks fuzzy. Let me force a refocus. There you go. Okay. I'm going to hop to the end of this story because I think the end is just as weird as being called out in the first place. You ready? I invited Bad Kitty on. You see it. Come on, we'll talk about this. I don't know if it's a him or her. I'm going to assume it's a her because it's Pepe's grandma. Or is it supposed to be Pepe's grandma? Whatever it is. That's the real handle. I said, come on, let's talk about this. Well, they replied. And I'm going to show you their two replies. That's the last part first. Okay. Here's the reply in Twitter. Imagine being your supporter all these years and searching for a doc and finding this. This should have come from you first. Shocked is putting it mildly. How many of you know of my exploration background? And how many different programs have I done just having fun? And we talk about treasure hunting, exploration, Oak Island, History Channel, Discovery Channel, whatever the case may be. Well, anyway, she admonishes me that it should have come from me first. On the thread, I mean, come on, but almost all of you know that. Okay, we'll get that in a minute. But on the thread, here's what she put. I'll call you on this. Why, listen to this wording. Why was I placed in the situation of finding this by accident and being shocked in the first place? Why the secret? I've known you for a long time and I've never saw this. I feel betrayed. This is to go back. Why was I placed in the situation of finding this by accident and being shocked in the first place? Why was it secret? This is kind of odd. And let me tell you why it's kind of odd. It's kind of odd because how do I even put this? It is the most successful television series, reality series, in the history of the History Channel. 160 countries. Let me see how many languages we are in now. It's in 160 countries. I think we might be 20 or 40 different languages. It may be more. I'm just double checking. I want to give you the right numbers. But it is the most successful television series of its kind ever. And that's saying a lot when you think about the TV world. But I'm trying to grasp why Bad Kitty Unleashed feels betrayed and posted. This is yesterday, so you understand timing, right? Why was I placed in the situation of finding this by accident and being shocked in the first place? Why the secret? I've known you a long time. I've never saw this. I feel betrayed. So I did reply to her on this one. This was this morning before we just came on. And I said, you know what? I never thought about letting you know. Let me tell you why I never thought about, and I'm paraphrasing, letting you know. Number one, we're talking something that's well over a decade ago. Even before I got the to do the audit in Arizona audit, everybody knew this. President Trump knows my history on television. The Secret Service knows my history on television. And you don't get to President Trump side by side, spend time with him if you're some flake-tard, dangerous poser. I said, everybody knows this is about me. And I said, frankly, how would something a decade and a half or more ago, would I know to call you and notify you personally in advance when I could have never known way back then, 2012, whatever it was, 13, 14, of course it still runs and there's reruns all the time. Who would have ever thought I would be doing an audit for the United States of America back then? How could I have ever thought to call you? And oh, by the way, I said I'm terribly sorry, but I forgot to call you when I was on PBS. I forgot to call you when I was on the Science Channel. I forgot to call you when I was on A&E. I forgot to call you when I was on Discovery. What do I say? What do you say to something like that? What do you say to somebody who I said in my post, I bet you don't have the ethic and personal fortitude to correct what you just said? Because you kind of painted it out like I was some poser. Now, of course, that all took off on its own. So I'm going to retell you this story, right? Any single show, and it reruns 10 or 15 times every single week. And it's been going for a decade and a half. Okay. It will get any time, and it's going to get between 3.5 and 5.4 million viewers. In its first run, there were 414 million viewers. It went to 200 different territories. And by the way, it was 40 languages. I was wrong. It was not 20, 40 different languages. It's one of the largest television franchises in television history. And somehow, because people, when you do this and they know you and following online, people take ownership in you, wants to know, why was I placed in the situation of finding this by accident and being shocked in the first place? Why was it secret? I've known you for a long time and I never saw this and I feel betrayed. It's had several billion viewers around the globe now, a decade and a half later. Several billion. Now, you clearly said on your Twitter, you clearly said it, truth will always prevail, count on it. Accuracy is my motive. And if you ever see something wrong, just let me know. So I'm going to let you know. I'm going to let you know a few things. I know that sometimes, and let's go back. When I was 15 years old, I got my first part in a movie. Does that make me a movie star? No. I've done a lot of TV, thousands of hours. Used to be on Fox. Does that make me a TV actor or a TV star? No. But I can tell you what. I don't think being on TV sums up who a person is in totality, or being in a movie sums up who a person is in totality. I think maybe in modern day, but I've kind of heard of people that were on television, right? Or doing series, going on to doing great things. Do you get my drift? So I personally wouldn't go, you didn't tell me, Mr. President, you were a cowboy in Westerns. Why did you not tell me? How dare you, Ronald Reagan, do the Ronald Reagan Theater and then claim you're a president? That kind of sounds like the left, doesn't it? And so I'm trying to understand, well, you didn't tell me. Why was I put in this situation in the first place? Well, how many people, way back when Ronald Reagan, who has a lot of the telemetry I had, television, radio, right, etc. Do you think they experienced something like that where there are people out there that says, Ronald Reagan, how dare you? You couldn't be president. You're an act. Oh, actually, there were liberals. That's right. Liberals. There's even people out there. And this is the only reason I'm talking about it. This person's shocked, okay? This person is shocked somehow that they weren't told, right? They were not told by me personally, I guess, I don't know, that I have been featured on television and PBS, et cetera, et cetera. But she clearly says it. Why the secret? Why did I just now find this out? Now, I'm trying really hard, just like anybody else. I'm trying really hard to understand this. And I'm going to give you the story because I got an interesting story to give you on the background of this. I think you'll love it. I really do. Right? All kinds of good comes from any questions like this. All kinds of good comes from any question like this. And this is why I even cover them, because it's interesting. And so, but for all fairness, she's correct if she's a she, and if she's not, okay. I didn't let her personally know. I actually didn't know who she was back then. Probably that's my mistake. I hope she realized that President Reagan did some of this quote unquote acting stuff, although I wasn't an actor. Guys, do you think I should tell her? Do I think I should tell her about Trump? I mean, this is only a treasure hunter TV actor with another TV actor, but do you think I should tell her? I don't know. Let's debate that one. Let me do drop some names on you, because if you're a cad or a grifter or whatever, because you did some work on this famous island, well, we kind of have to start with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, don't we? Franklin Delano Roosevelt was deeply involved, and I mean deeply involved in Oak Island. Right? Working his ass off on the island. When I got the phone call, here's how it came about. It was early springish. Winter was closing out. It's coming to spring. I get a call in Montana outside, says the History Channel. I answer the phone. Or I get the call from the house and say, hey, it's the History Channel. They want to talk to you. I'd already known the History Channel and the people there and all kinds of stuff. And they said, hey, look, we went ahead and did a program on Oak Island called The Curse of Oak Island. Season 1 had just aired. And I said, yeah, I saw it. I said, you're going to be in trouble, because all you're going to do is have people walking around looking for wood. And they laughed. And they said, well, that's why we're calling you. You're the only team in the world that has a terrestrial treasure team that actually does exploration. And would you consider, on behalf of the History Channel, would you come up? And we're going to do season 2, but we're really terrified because season 1 was supposed to be 6 shows. 1 was so bad we didn't even air it. But we do know we have a hit. But we've got to treat this right, because it is obvious this is going to take exploration skills. And this place had already killed several people. Right? And one of the holes inside the island had killed 6 people. It just so happens that in my team, which I command, and we're a terrestrial team. What's a terrestrial team? We primarily work ground, not ocean. Right? And so my job was a very simple job. Very, very, very simple job. I agreed to 1 season, and then I would come in. We'd get a good understanding of everything. I would show them the exploration and ancient side of it. I will put my team down in the hole that has killed 6 people, and we'll get them jump started on how to more handle this professionally. That was my job, right? Not an actor. And so we came in 2 different times and taught them basic exploration issues and techniques. I brought in the scanning equipment used in the oil field, ironically, and the scanner used, meaning the person and team that used to scan the Titanic And I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'll put my people in, but we're going to combine it with deep ocean scanning, but we're going to use it on the ground. We'll do it here. And I brought in the scanning team, worked with all the big companies and stuff. And let's get this all done. And let's get a really good look at it. Right? And so that was my commitment to the History Channel. And then we met the brothers. I'd never met the brothers before, but I told the History Channel, I'll come do this, but I want you to know nothing's there. In fact, you've got the history wrong of what this really is. How did it form? What did it do? Whatever. And they basically said, look, it's not that we care about that. We just want to get to 100 episodes. That's the only thing we have to do, get to 100 episodes of exciting TV. Okay. So as I get there, there's this deep hole in the island that they dug trying to get to the treasure. Now, I know a lot more history than they know history, and I know these son of a bitches, because Canada laws is so strict. And Canada has seized the island many times because they believed the myth there was massive treasure there. That old man Blankenship, God rest his soul, when they couldn't dig, old man Blankenship would take dynamite, underwater explosives, and in this 18-story hole, he would toss dynamite in the hopes that if he could do enough dynamite down in the hole and there was treasure coin, that some of the coins might blow up in the air out of the hole and fall on land, and he'd have proof and the government would let him dig. So let me see if I can find a picture for you. So knowing that and planning that, the first thing I had to do is I had to shore up the island. So we had to engineer decks and just all kinds of stuff on the island to stabilize this massive, dangerous hole. Let me see if I can show you a picture here. That they had dug and blown into this island because this is where they thought the little bitty depression originally was. So they dug and 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 oak planks and all this other bullshit. Let me see if I can put this on my screen. Hang on. And so this is this massive unstable area with a hole punched down in this island, 18 stories deep, and it had already killed 6 people. Okay, 6 people. And so part of my thing with the island is I've got to figure out how to get a crew down this thing and not get my guys killed, where it had already killed many, people. So the first thing I do is I start shoring this thing up, and I bring the most advanced equipment in the world, because that's what I do. You got to understand, command is not just only exclusively a Navy title. It's also a title in professional exploration when you command an exploration team, which is exactly what I do. So a lot of you that see stuff out there and see the commander part, it's simply coming from my rank of commanding a team. And so I'm putting my team down in this hole to try to understand, okay, what are we looking at? What's going on? How does it work? And I'm having to teach these people the history of this island that they didn't know and what really connects. But I'm going to put 2 of my team members in super peril doing it if everybody doesn't understand what happened. So I have to take them all around the island. And by the way, you can see from this photo, it's really near to shore. It's not really far off, right? But, and that's me, Norman, when I'm in the field, that's what I look like. And I'm out there, we're just basically scanning it, shoring it, and getting up because I'm going to drop my divers in. Anyway, we did. And even before I could drop my divers in, many of you know this because I've talked about it before, I have to fight with the History Channel because they don't want to put in a woman. All of my teams are male and female pairs. I don't use exclusively guys because guys predominantly are egotistic fucking assholes and get each other killed. So the way I balance it in true life or death situations is all of my teams are male and female counterpoints. Because I know in the field, in the face of danger, the guy will always lie to me. Give you an example. A lot of this has to do with the Arizona audit. If you were to look at my team, see Beast there in blue? If you were to look at my team, that's where all the colors from the Arizona audit come from. I'm having to monitor remote teams either by drones or aircraft, or I'm miles away and I'm looking. So all my teams are in color coordinated. And so if I was watching on a cliff far away and I see blue fall off the cliff, I know I got to go get a 6'6", fucking 350-pound dude and try to extract his ass out of there. If green goes down, if a light green goes down, then I know she's 120 pounds. Get it? And better decisions. So I can be talking to somebody like Beast on the radio and I'm tracking them. And I'm going, are you standing on the ledge of that cliff? He'll go, no, sir, I'm not standing on the ledge of that cliff. And I go, are you telling me the truth? You're standing on the ledge of the cliff. No, sir, I'm not. But see, everything's recorded. I get their cameras when they come back. And he's fucking standing on a rock about that big, which is unstable. And it's a 2,000-foot drop. That's the kind of stuff guys will do. So I always put the women with it because it was the woman that got him back off of it. And I get really good decisions out of women and super critical high stakes. When you got to write trained women, all the women are trained military, and his partner, she can still take her AR, break it down, blindfold it, put it back together, and shoot you at 1,500 yards. Anyway. And putting the teams in there, History Channel didn't want a woman to go in the hole. And they wanted to stick us with some other bullshit divers. So I'm not doing it. I'm not putting my team's life in the hands of somebody I don't know who's doing this just for TV reasons. And then they actually said, get this, she's too ugly. Granted, she's not really a great-looking woman. 30 years police, fire, and rescue, one of the top team cave diving in the world, but they decide she's too ugly. Of course, you know me. I said, fuck you. By the way, they're married. They're a husband and wife team. I said, this is the only team in the world that can do it, that I trust. Don't want a woman in there? We don't dive. Fuck you. Because these guys never consider the fact that those old guys had been constantly throwing dynamite down this hole. Constantly, over the years. And I go, you want me to put 2 lives in there, right? I'm managing everything on the way down. They're going to go down 18 stories. It's filled with debris. It's blown to batshit crazy. It's super pressurized. You know, they tried to think you can do it with suited divers, commercial divers in Canada. They get 9 minutes. We went down with rebreathers, which means I can stay underwater if I had to for more than 24 hours. They didn't even have the right gear. And if you go with a professional dive, you're tethered. We knew at the bottom there was a hole about this big, and we had to get through that hole to get to the interior of the island, to the caverns below. Anyway, that's the TV bullshit of it. But that's the history of this island. Now, Miss Bad Kitty tried to make it like I was some actor who got the audit. Well, let me tell you a few of the people that were involved in this. This is the Astor family. You are looking at William Vincent Astor. It was his father, the one that died on the Titanic. They were one of the original funding families because this was wildly expensive, dangerous exploration even way back then. Admiral Byrd. You may have heard of Admiral Byrd. You know who Admiral Byrd is? Yeah. He's the guy who flew over the North Pole for the first time. He was the guy who the Royal Geographic Society had all the hoo-hoo about, and the U.S. military got the Medal of Honor, right? One of the most famous polar explorers of the 20th century, especially in Antarctica. He was the one that, used modern aircraft and logistics. Well, Admiral Byrd got invited there. Another person who, believe it or not, was in exploration, loved anything daring in exploration, Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn got invited there. Hey, Mr. Flynn, do you think you can help out? And so Errol Flynn. I mean, who doesn't know Errol Flynn, right? Famous, damn movie actor, right? Holy shit, movie actor. Well, he got invited there because of his expertise. Another slouch got invited there, John Wayne. This is kind of what upsets me about what Bad Kitty posted. When you think of all the famous people that got invited there, all the famous people involved, I'm in fucking pretty good company, don't you think? So when I got a chance to get there for something that had been ongoing for several hundred years that nobody solved, and we cracked, by the way, where people were like John Wayne worked, or Errol Flynn, or Admiral Byrd, and all these others, of course I jumped at the chance. But somehow she feels betrayed because she didn't know that I go practice my exploration. Again, by the way, not only did I practice exploration, I wrote the actual course law book for it worldwide, for every state and every country. I am the author of the definitive law book on it. I've written hundreds of books on exploration, lost treasures, etc. Of course, I got the call. There's no one like me in it. And by the way, let me just read to you what I replied, right? And I'll just give you my reply. So I wrote, because she says, where is it? Let me put it up on the screen. This. Folks, have I ever led you wrong? Now, this is, anyone know why an Oak Island TV actor audited the election? Here's what I wrote back. Tell me if I was wrong and not giving her the truth. So I wrote back, now this is interesting. Actor? Well, you have it wrong. Once I retired from technology, I began international exploration, especially since I wrote the guidebook on international and national rules of finder keeper's law. I found my first ancient Spanish treasure as a child, and I've always been fascinated by such. Anyway, after I wrote over 300 books, yes, you read that right, on lost treasure history as a forensic historian, then one day I just come off working on an expedition in excavations in Belize, and I got a call from the History Channel. Why did I get the call? Being a land-based legendary team, right? And I was the only person who commanded a professional terrestrial treasure recovery marine, almost everybody ex-military. They needed professional help trying to figure out how to find what the island really was. I put in quotes, there was no treasure there. And more importantly, how to get inside that 18-story deep hole, which had previously killed 6 people. My team, my command, are the only ones globally which have such skills and expertise. So the History Channel hired me both as a forensic historian and professional explorer to help. The previous famous names associated with the mysterious island were Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and John Wayne, and Errol Flynn. You might know those names. Let's see. So I jumped at the chance to become part of that short list. In short, we taught them all we knew over season 2 and then placed in the deep scan team from the Titanic to do the rest once we were done. And now here we are. So was I or my team actors chosen? No, of course not. Now let's look at you. You took a rumor, more than likely fed to you by others, and ran with it. Did you reach out to me? No. Did you try to find facts? No again. Did you actually publish the actual facts? Nope. Did you lead people wrong? Yes, indeed. So what kind of account are you? People come to you for facts, yet you prove here you post none. How about you come on live, Kitty, and let's cover my background skills. How did I get into the audit skills for elections? Well, right after the election, I got a call from the White House about QR codes used on the ballots in Georgia. Those are my 207 patents. I was asked if the codes had been used nefariously. I reported back, no. At the time, I was doing my own investigation, so being a high-level technologist, forensic investigator, and researcher, not to set aside a forensic historian, with my credits of my working and appearing, of my works appearing in 150 plus universities around the globe, I was tapped to do forensic audits. But then again, you could have just reached out and asked. I would have pointed you to all of it. Bad kitty, and bad advice, and reporting too. And then I asked, well, P.S., why do you do it? Why do you put that out? I only do this as an example of this is how we as conservatives, and it's very subtle. Obviously, what happened is she came across something somebody wrote trying to portray me in a bad light. Who always says? The Secretary of State of Georgia did a page saying failed treasure hunter. Who also does that? Clements, Raccoon, Joe Altman, Dr. Frank. They'll always kind of use that failed treasure hunter, which has nothing to do with me. It's an article somebody wrote on crap, something I didn't even do. But these are how these stories take off. So obviously she didn't do a research. She just took off on that story. Now I find it interesting that this happened at the moment I'm smacking Cleta Mitchell. I am smacking Georgia, and I'm smacking the fellow David Cross in Georgia. It's kind of funny. The reason I was smacking the individual in Georgia, David Cross, is because, the boxes have been gathered in Georgia. Now you're hearing the supposedly 700 boxes picked up, right? You know that, right? You probably have now heard that they didn't get 700 boxes. Did you hear that? So Tulsi Gabbard does this raid, and they're supposed to pick up all these boxes. They're led to believe they pick up 700 boxes, and when they go back, they find out there's not 700 boxes. In fact, there might be anywhere from 40 to 50 boxes missing. And so somebody posted on that, and it was an election official in Georgia. So I replied, I said, I want to let you know that those 40 to 50 boxes that are missing more than likely are the actual ballots. This was by an Amy Kremer, right? Amy Kremer, chairwoman, first American chairwoman, co-founder, Women for Trump, RNC, National Committee woman, GOP, Georgia Republicans, former Delta flight attendant. And so she wrote 44 boxes are missing. What do you think about that? And so I wrote, it's easy to point out what may actually be in said boxes which are missing are the ballots, since that's the estimated number of boxes it would have taken to hold the number of ballots we were supposed to do kinematic artifact detection on. But people like, and I tagged them, Georgia Ballots, David Cross, made sure the system panicked and suppressed them. And then I wrote, David, maybe you should run for office on the Dem side. Well, he replied. And let me show you his reply. This is the former vice chair. Now I'm calling out. I told you a long time ago, the chances of us seeing these ballots in Georgia are very small. I have no problem, left, right, indifferent. I don't give a shit. You fuck it up, I'm going to call it out. Well, this is the guy who let the world know what we were really finding, and he should never have talked about it. It was not authorized to talk about it. It created a shit stir in Georgia. And we ended up not getting the ballots. I told him that would happen. Anyway, so I wrote, you should probably go run for the Dems, because when he finally got booted out from the Georgia party, because he got rewarded, they raised him up for that. He got booted out. He claimed they stole it from him, and he still complains. And I said, just run as a Dem. He did reply to me. And he replied, maybe you should eat a bag of dicks, Jovan. Now, this is the vice chair. Maybe you should eat a bag of dicks, Jovan. This is the vice chair of Georgia, who wanted to be the chair, who wants to represent that state. Well, that's pretty funny. Tell me to bag of dicks. Well, I didn't let it go. I said, well, what sizes and flavors do you keep handy, David? Yeah, what sizes and flavors do you keep handy, David? Let me see what you got. I mean, if we're gonna get a bag of them, then I want to pick the ones I want, not the ones you think I should get. That's the GOP. I have no problem going head to head with people. And certainly I'm not talking in the sword fight kind of way, because I'd win. You can't beat an anaconda sword, but you know what I mean. All right, David. Yeah, what sizes and flavors do you keep handy there, David? You got a kind of like a Baskin Robbins thing going on. That's the GOP. That's the GOP. I call them out for what they did and how they hurt the audit and the shit they played, and all they can do is tired juvenile shit like that, which is okay. I can play with the best of them. And there's a very good chance that the GOP does have a supply of a bag of dicks that I could choose between sizes and flavors they keep handy. Stop it. I'm going to pinch you if you keep on talking to me that way. Yes, people can be morons. And so you kind of have the history of the reason I decided to tell this is I thought, damn, my damn screen fucking did it again. I don't know what the hell's going on. Quick reset. I said wieners. Hold on. Maybe I'm pushing the buttons too quick. I don't know. Maybe David sending me that message about a bag of dicks just got me so excited I was pushing buttons too fast. Who knows? How stupid. Anyway, if it comes down to, because I've done television work and that makes me an actor. Well, I happen to know some great people that were actors, gone on and done good things. I'll accept that and I'll take that as a compliment. If my work on Oak Island, being part of history there, kind of makes me not qualified to do an audit, I don't know why, but I'm in the company of incredibly historic, legendary people. Well, I did. I took that one. If being a forensic historian and law scholar, because remember, this is all forensic history. I actually teach people how to do it, trace it down. And all my technology stuff, I don't know what qualifies anyone to be an audit, right? Ever. Because there are no such thing as official election auditors. Never have been. And so if we were looking at qualified election auditors, then I don't know what qualifies me, but I can tell you when they looked at the hanging chads, they looked at about 60,000 ballots. Well, my team and me personally are the only people in history that have looked at in excess of 2 million physical ballots, 189 million voted ovals. Maricopa is the fourth largest county in the United States, the second largest voting block ever. I don't know if that doesn't qualify me as an expert, and it certainly qualifies me to be invited in by President Trump and sit down, not for the typical 3 or 4 minutes somebody gets, but for 96 minutes and then dinner. I don't know what qualifies a person. Now, if you want to know about Oak Island, right? It's a great piece of history. It is an absolutely great piece of history. It really is. And I jumped on it. I did. I jumped on the ability to help with that story. Okay? This story of this island started in 1795. How far would that be? Let me go here. Hang on. It was March 1795 to now. Let me see how long apart that is, just for shits and giggles. That was 230 years, 10 months, and 27 days ago, or 84,339 days ago. So in 1795, and I'm going to tell you the real story. In 1795, supposedly some kids, they weren't kids, supposedly some kids walked across this island and they found the depression, a little caved in hole in the island. And supposedly they found a tackle and block in a tree. And because pirate stuff was the thing of the day, everybody believed that it was pirate treasure. It was John Smith, Anthony Vaughan, and Daniel McGinnis. It's the original discovery story. And so this kind of became rumor up there in Nova Scotia. And between 1804 and 1805, there were many companies organized. One was called the Oslo Company. 1848 to 1851 was the Truro Company. 1858 to 1862 was the Truro Syndicate. 1863 to 1865, the Oak Island Association. 1866 to 1867, the Oak Island El Dorado Company. 1893 to 1899, the Oak Island Treasure Company. 1909 to 1911, the Old Gold Salvage Company. 1931, the William Chappell and Associates. 1934 to 1938, the Gilbert Hutton Group. 1959, 1965, the Robert Restall and family, and it killed his family, his sons. 1965, 1967, it was Robert Dunfield. 1969 to 2007, it was the Triton Alliance. And then 2007 to present was the Oak Island Tours. That's the modern TV show. So these kids on this island find a depression. And at that depression, they think there's gold. And it's that little depression that led to that deep hole right there. But here's the picture that shows more. Okay? This is the edge of Oak Island to the shore across the way. You're not looking at Oak Island. You're looking at the neighborhood across the way. That's how far it is. It's about a schoolyard away from the land. You don't really see that. Okay? You don't really see that. But people remember Oak Island because it kind of looks like an elephant. I tell people it looks like an elephant pooping a birthday cake. You see that little round island off the ass of the elephant? Well, here's the story you're never going to be told. First off, you see the causeway there. That's how close it is to the mainland. Here is what Oak Island is. Always has been, always will be. Long ago, when a lot of the northern part of the oceans were still frozen solid, ancient explorers from the east, yes, from the east, the Far East, Holy Lands, Mediterranean, etc., they would come, ancient biblical roots, they would come to the Americas. It's where King Solomon got all his riches, although history will not acknowledge that. And the reason they could do it is because the Gulf Stream did this, and it circles back, and it lands in Nova Scotia. Well, all of that upper ice, about 15,000 years ago, was still solid. So all you had to do is put a boat in the water, and you kind of floated along the ice, and you would ultimately end up where the ice would break. It's just about where Oak Island is. Oak Island was a jetty of land where freshwater ran. It's called Gold Creek, by the way. Freshwater ran out. And so Oak Island was the nearest stop without getting out of your boats or ships inland and taking your whole cruise that you could refill your freshwater reserves. But it wasn't an island. It was a jetty. Right? It's kind of stuck out. Everything you see on the left-hand corner of the room of the image, that was all still connected. So the ships would pull up to the deep side, top of the elephant's head, that's the deep side. And they would basically walk right to the stream, which is kind of where you see the causeway now, and that's where the stream and stuff used to be. And they would refill their waters. Now, we knew this. I knew it going in. I said, Oak Island was a re-watering station, easiest way to do it, for ancient mariners that were coming to the Americas way back when. And I said, so it's not associated with gold or pirates or even the 1800s. I said, it's much, 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 much more ancient than that. I said it's so ancient, it's probably the most important discovery in North American history because it rewrites everything we know. And so I told the producers, I actually know what this is, but we'll be glad to come in and teach you. Now, we have no say what they teach about. None, zero. If you were watching in this episode and two, you're looking at a symbol. You see the bare ground right there? You're looking at a symbol carved in the stone. This is the highland, up on the highland of Nova Scotia, right there, landside looking down on the island. And those are ancient petroglyphs. I've done many episodes on this. But basically what it is a star navigation map. Now you're watching me right there. As I take out my gear, we scanned it, we've LiDAR'd it, turned it into 3D. And I take little bitty clicking lights and I put them in the little divots and they start flashing and you're able to see how they're stars. Well, it's a star map. Not like Star Trek, but a star map. And I said, now stand up. And I had them turn around and they're looking out basically towards the bay, towards the island. I said, this map, what you're looking at, since it shows the Northern Cross, I said, why is the Northern Cross inverted? Well, when you look right here, you're looking at the Northern Cross. I said, what that is to tell you where to put your boat back in, to go back across the ocean. This you're going to put in right here. It's going to take you down the side of Maine, and then you're going to hit the Gulf Stream, and it's going to counter kick you, and you're going to sail right back to the Middle East. And they said, well, what is all this other stuff? And I said, well, that's the star configuration of Pleiades. And I showed them Pleiades. And they says, well, it doesn't look like Pleiades. I said, you're not looking at it right. See, we look at Pleiades from west to east. How do they look at Pleiades? They look at Pleiades from east to west. Why did they look for Pleiades? Because when Pleiades comes up on the western horizon and you're in the east, that's when you sail. You point for the Pleiades, right? So it starts right on the high horizon. You see the Seven Sisters. And ancient mariners would follow it as it did this. That's what points you to our lands. I said, you're looking at it in reverse because you have a western-centric look at it. So I showed them everything, and I showed them right there, not too far from our feet, long ago, a cache. They didn't cover a lot of this on the program. A cache of coins was found from ancient Carthagena, ancient Carthage. We're talking biblical times. Ancient Carthage is North Africa. And I said, the carving you see on the stone and the language you see on the Oak Island stone is Proto-Canaanite Berber. And I decoded them all for them. I basically, here it is. It's ancient prototype Berber, which they thought were treasure markings and stuff. And so I showed them and gave them all the history. Here's how it is. Here's how it ties in, even to the fact of finding incredible ancient artifacts. And they really didn't know what they were looking at. Some of the old trees, which got pulled out of, and I'll wrap this up here, but some of the old trees, oak trees that got cut, the oak trees were not native oaks at all. These oak trees, if you go back and look at the old photos of what survived, these oak trees were massive. Well, these were quercus from Africa, a particular type of oak, ancient savanna oaks, not native American or Canadian oaks. And they said, why would these trees be here? And I said, they planted these trees because of how high the canopy grows, and the canopy grows flat. You've seen them. I said, that's how they visually see where the island is from the ocean. So all these magnificent trees were sighting devices. That's why you find this weird oak tree. That's why it was called Oak Island. When oaks everywhere, why would they fucking call this place Oak Island? Because it was not an oak like any other oak. It was fucking, what the fuck? It's oak, but what the fuck is this? And so they were planted there. Well, nobody ever thought to talk to the ancient peoples. So I went around and I met all the chiefs of the tribes. And I interviewed them about their ancient history. Now, the people that are there are the Mi'kmaq. We'll just call them Micmac for short. The Micmac people have been there at their ancestral lands for about 10,000 years. They're the only native tribe that have never been moved and relocated. If you were to look at the tribe long before the missionaries came in the 1800s, they already knew all of the stories of the ancient Bible. Native people. They're not a seafaring people. They'll go after, small whales in bays and stuff, but they're not a seafaring people. But they had this incredible seafaring language. They had this incredible knowledge of the stars. They had this incredible knowledge of things that were in the Middle East. And 1/3 of their language was Egyptian. Yeah. So I'm showing them all this stuff. When I talk to the ancients talk about a time when people came, and they planted those oaks. Well, those were the sighting devices. Well, over time, when everybody was trying to excavate this island and they're cutting down the oaks, one of the oaks that they cut into, when they were cutting it up, they hit something near the pith. Now, the oak trees are about yay big around. The pith is the bullseye. So as they're cutting at it, about 2/3 of the way in, they hit something metal. And there's 3 of them. And they pull them out. And it's a point, like an arrowhead. And there were arrowheads so deep in the tree that they grew around the ancient bronze. They were ancient bronze. Not flint, not anything, ancient bronze. What happened is those spear tips, which is what they were, even though locals tried to say, oh, those were just log rollers, it was bullshit. I had to debunk all of that. Those spear tips were sent to the National Military Weapons Testing Laboratory, and they came back belonging to the Romans. They were a particular Roman point. And they were embedded in this tree. And so basically some of these guys getting water a long time then were shooting their shit, shot them in the tree, and they got stuck in the tree, and they left them in the tree, grew around it. So the mystery of Oak Island is massive. It's just got told through a filter that's wrong. Now I'm going to tell you what the money pit is we dived. And I'm going to tell you exactly what it is so you understand. If you go back and watch season 2, I put my team down in that dangerous hole. We scan it. I use the device that's used for the oil field when you got to drop down several miles in a pipe, about this big, you got to drop it down, and you've got to look for hairline fractures to know where the well is going to compromise and implode. So I chose the right piece of equipment. Bring in the scan team from the Titanic, drop this device down a pipe that was right next to the hole, and I can kind of look at everything, and it goes all the way down. That's how they knew there was a cavern below. They drilled with pipe first, and then it just opens up, and we scanned it. If in fact you remember that, and you remember old Dan Blankenship spent his whole life there, how did he end up buying the island? He charged people to treasure hunt, and that's how he was able to acquire all the fucking lots. Treasure hunt always paid for this place. Anyway, you'll see me release that scan to Dan Blankenship. Let's see, I'm here, scan team, me, Blankenship, Marty Lagina, and here Dan Blankenship, he's passed now. He says, I'll be damned. I never thought I was going to see the bottom of that damn hole. Now, what that structure is a Mycenaean tomb. We're talking going back to the time of like Helen of Troy. It's a tomb. There's a stone sarcophagus in it. You can see the pots and everything else. But there's a really catch with TV. If anything, in their contract with the government, because the government has seized the island many times, if anything gets found that's before that 1795 date, the government gets to seize the island again. That's Canada for you. And Canada allows no exploration in their oceans. So to protect the television show, even though you're watching it happen with my team, they had to kind of make a dodge because we showed it's an ancient tomb, which is what we knew. Now let's talk about the money pit. You've always heard the story of planks and dirt, and there's 10 levels of planks going down to this thing. Yes, all those oak planks were there, but it's in reverse. You hear of an island that has this big hole, it had planks, and it had these water traps, right? These booby trap water traps. Well, here's what they are. It's actually in reverse. When waters receded around the island, there were cuts into the cave system in the island, which was always there. So you can kind of walk through the island, get fresh water, because there's all kinds of springs and stuff, and get to the river instead of walking over the island. The natives always knew of this place. What happened is if you were to look under the water, now this is only about 10 feet, 15, 20 feet deep at this edge with the causeway. The left, that little birthday cake, right? It's round. You can see it's rock. It's round. That's an additional tomb. That's why it's perfectly round. It's a tomb. Underneath the water there are 3 stacked stone pyramids and battlements. So at one time, a pretty good battle took place here, probably over the fresh water. And that's why when you look at the McGinnis Foundation, and I'm looking at it, I'm talking with a geologist, and I'm looking at this old home with the McGinnis Foundation, and there's these cut slabs of stone, and I'm asking the geologist, where does this stone come from? Because it's not here on the surface. And the geologist says, well, that stone about 150 feet down. And I go, did anybody ask where in the hell this stone came from that got to the island that only appears 150 feet in the interior? And they go, wow, I never thought of that. So I turn and look at the island and I flash LiDAR across it. And what I could see is how they dragged the stones up the shoreline from that little bitty pooped birthday cake. That's the McGinnis Foundation. That's how I was able to find that that's a tomb, and that's where they dug. And down, when they got down, they were cutting out those big slabs of stone to get them out, and they drug them. You can kind of see it in that photo there. Maybe I can zoom this up. But this is the difference between knowing what you're doing and researching it properly so you understand, okay, how do we look at this? When I show it to you, it'll become very apparent. Let me just find the image. Hang on. Damn it. Give me a minute. There it is. I'm going to get up in my browser here. That way I can zoom it up. Let me go here. Let me get that. Let me share my screen. Share screen. Go here. Go here. That's it. Now I'm going to boom. Now I'm going to boom it up for you. Okay. So this is the deep water end, right? The triangle swamp is formed when they put this road in. It's not some Templar bullshit. I showed them how it got made when they put the road in. There's the pit. But when you come over here, right? Let me see if I can. There. So you see the pooped island? See it right here? Now the McGinnis Foundation's right there. You kind of go from the island. You see the little nipple on the shore, like the sphincter. You can see the drag marks. You can see it. You can see it clearly where they dragged it up to the top there of the road, right there at the road where you see those few trees. That's the McGinnis Foundation. Nobody knew what the fuck they were looking at. Nobody. And there were all kinds of big stones that the old guys had moved around the island that had carvings and stuff on it. That I said those were sighting devices. Here's how you sight them up. Anyway, the place is a tomb, but let me explain the money bit. Stop thinking digging down to get to treasure. That is not what it was. A very ancient mariner at some time got killed in a battle there, and they entombed that very important person in this island. The little, what you thought were water traps, never were water traps. All they did was backfill little entrances. They backfilled them. Those little shots on the island led into a central cavern. It is that central cavern down there where they buried this person, put his tomb, his armaments and everything. Just to the right of the tomb, okay? Just to the right of the tomb, they dug out of the tomb. They didn't dig down, they dug out. Now, let me explain how we mechanically know this. As they're digging up, standing on rocks that are down there, they start digging up and then they bring in planks and they set planks. They stand on those planks and they dig to the next level. They get on top of a few planks like scaffolding. They dig up more. Boom. They dig up more. Boom. It's scaffolding. Now, how do we know it's scaffolding? Because in all of those layers that they found, when they got to the very last one and they filled it in with dirt, over time, dirt compacts and deciduates, which means it relaxes and folds. That is why there was a dip. They dug a little, they found the planks. They got the planks out of the way. There was an air gap. They dug some more. They find more planks. There was an air gap. Basically, in hiding the tomb, that is how the makers of the tomb hid it. They sealed in all the waterways, the ways. They used scaffolding to get out at a whole totally different location you would never think, in the middle of the woods, and then they covered it up. Over time, it kind of sank. That's it. That's all it is. The very steady rise, and now you got to understand, we're talking about an event thousands of years ago. We're not talking about an event from the 1800s or 700s. The water has climbed, okay, enough that it started seeping in these little channels that were packed. And then the land itself has 9 springs on it. And so as the older guys started digging, because they didn't know anything about the island, as they would dig around in this hole, they broke what's called a static clip. Let me tell you how this works. The reason they call it a booby trap is because when they first excavated the hole, they got down. When they came back in the morning, it was filled up. All that happened is they broke the static barrier. All this water kind of sat in homeostasis over time. It's called a static clip. It's like when you draw your finger in sand or dust, and you can make little rivers, but if you knock a little dent in the dust, it'll go the other direction. What they did is they scraped down enough that the water that was there, the natural water table that was there, it kind of broke the static clip and it just started seeping in. And that's why it filled back up overnight, which they always thought it was a booby trap. Never was a booby trap, ever, period. And that's what Oak Island is. It got many people interested in exploration. We knew what it was from the beginning. There is no treasure, never has been any treasure. The treasure is the history. But then there's a problem with the history. And the problem with the history is what collides with Canada and Manifest Destiny. The ancients have always told you ancient mariners came here. Have always told you. Ancient mariners came here. King Solomon and all those guys, ancient mariners were getting stuff to supply the Bronze Age. This is all, you got to understand, Nova Scotia is the mouth that comes down the St. Lawrence Seaway. It goes to the Great Lakes. What's missing in the Great Lakes? Billions of pounds of copper. We know it was mined. Billions of pounds of copper was mined. But we don't have copper artifacts in America. We don't have them. The copper's missing. Well, what happened is there was an ancient trade route. They would come in by this very route. They would come down the St. Lawrence Seaway. They'd go through the Great Lakes, getting to Michigan. They mined the copper, and they sent it all the way back to the Middle East, and it is what fueled the Bronze Age. That's a forbidden history you're not allowed to know. We chased it all the way down to DNA. We chased it down to artifacts. We chased it down to shipwrecks in Turkey. Can show you it came from Michigan and everything else, but it's opposite of Manifest Destiny, and it'll never be allowed to see the light of day because it opens up a unique thing that foreign countries, like Saddam, his family says they discovered America's. And by the way, technically, they were the ancient Berbers. And so it creates an amazing clash of history that is not allowed to be talked about. And so it's suppressed as much as it is. I just happened to be the team and manage the team that cracked it and put it together. They never accounted that science would catch up. So if you were to look up the ancient Turkey shipwrecks, there's a little thing called ox hides. You'll see them with Egyptians carrying these things that look like a double Y on end. That's copper ingots. They're big. They would dig a hole in the ground, that shape. They'd fill it with melted copper. It would dry. It would get to the ships. They transported that all the way back to the ancient Middle East to fuel the Bronze Age. Well, I found the places they smelted it. The way I found it is because it was discovered a long time ago that archaeologists walked in and go, what are all these funky altars? Were they doing human sacrifice? Which is the bullshit. Had all of these little designs in the ground. Rounds this big, and ox hides. Let me show you an ox hide. Hang on. Anyway, I found in our history I'll show it to you this way because it kind of shows both. I'll do it this way. Sharing my screen. I found some old files in the United States of America that archaeologists found these little weird shaped altars on the ground that were vitrified, meaning burned really hard. You see how this Egyptian here, which by the way, these two, they're actually Syrian, not Egyptian. But you see them carrying that shape on their shoulder right there? 1, 2. Okay, it's called an ox hide. Now they made it like this so it could be easily picked up. This is pure copper. Here's a better depiction of it. That's pure copper. Okay? Now, the molds of these, meaning in the ground, were found here in the United States of America. Archaeologists, not understanding what they were looking at, they knew they had been subjected to high heat. But they thought they were altars. But I'm going, why would you fucking lay flat on the ground to pray to something? That's stupid. But ultimately, child sacrifice altars. Well, they found a structure with it. And the structure was an Egyptian temple. A bona fide Egyptian temple. Now, this was a radical discovery. And so the Americans, under Roosevelt, the subsequent Roosevelt, Theodore, sent for an English scholar who came to the United States of America, and he looked at this thing and goes, holy fuck, what is an Egyptian temple doing right here? Like, holy fuck. And so our nation had a crisis. You got all this site. Now, I tracked this all the way down to DNA in the peoples who have the Minoan gene. But back then, when they discovered all this, they discovered all of these artifacts and all this stuff. And they're freaking out. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Because they're basically saying, fuck, our history is not what it was, and other countries may have a claim. Well, I want to let you know this was technically on the East Coast. It was in Tennessee. So here's all this fascinating stuff in Tennessee. And so our country, in order to protect that secret, they documented, they didn't think people like me would ultimately find it and knew what it was. They documented it, and they built what you now know as the Tennessee Valley Water Authority. And that's why they put up that massive dam in Tennessee claiming we needed water when we didn't. And they sunk it under hundreds of feet of water in that whole valley. That's it. They hit it. Totally forbidden to talk about, but what they didn't, I'll show you, I'm gonna go back to that one picture. What they never accounted on, and elections got me a lot distracted from this part of my work. But, history is history. I don't care what it is. It's history, and it won't change anything, and people aren't going to go take the country. But you notice these ingots here? You notice the bumps on it? Right? Let me see if I can go. Let me see if I can get a good picture. You see all those little bumps there? Do you know what that is? Do you know what that is? Put it in chat. Tell me if you know what that is. It's not tool marks. Good point. It is patina. Patina is the green, but I'm not talking about the patina. I'm talking about the dimples. Not algae, and it's not gold. Let me tell you what that is. Do you remember when I told you they made a mold in the ground, in the clay, the Delta clay, the Tennessee clay and sand? They made a mold. They would take hot copper, and they'd pour it in it. Do you remember me telling you that in chat? Right, in Oreo? Well, that's the soil. You're not looking at soil marks. You're looking at soil deposits that have been captured in the process of making the ingot. So all of those little bitty dimples are copper encapsulated soil. Now that soil captured in all those little pimples, when you analyze it, shows it comes from the United States of America and Tennessee. Because you can test the soil, tell exactly where it comes from. Now here's your last pop quiz. Where was that ingot found? Now you understand, if they're pouring it on the soil, it's going to take up some of the minerals. You understand that, right? They're just pouring calcium carry it. And that soil came from the USA. Where was that particular ingot found? Right there. Right off the coast of Turkey. Which goes back, we were dead on. We used forensics. We got it right. There it is. And it was found in what's called the Uluburu shipwreck. I know that sounds really weird, but it's the Uluburu shipwreck. And on that shipwreck, there are all kinds of pieces of copper, all kinds of massive artifacts, ingots, coppers, decoration, everything found on those ships. And you can take those artifacts, whether round, flat, or thing, and you can pick them up, and you can come back to the old images of the molds in Tennessee, and you can drop them right in the slots. But that's forbidden history that is not allowed to be known. I think we may be getting to the point that it can finally get out. But it goes back to even what I fight today with forensic. Our governments fucking lie to us nonstop. There's always a fight, always a political issue, etc. Always. This is the source of the claim of Saddam, funny, no, not Saddam, hang on, brain fart, Gaddafi. See, Gaddafi was ancient Berber. Muammar Gaddafi, when he said, my family discovered America, he's actually telling the truth. It was those ancient Berbers that came to the United States of America thousands and thousands of years ago. They didn't stake a land claim. But that's what this secret battle is. A lot of time is over. It's deeper than you can imagine, longer than you can imagine, etc. So how did we get here? We got here because one woman, I assume she's a woman, on Twitter, somehow, see, fire, 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 fire. Does anyone want to know why an Oak Island TV actor audited an election? Seriously, folks, have I ever steered you wrong? Right? By the way, this original thing, hey, Oak Island is calling you, was posted by many other peoples, including Altman, Clements, etc. So you now know what this account is tied to. And frankly, she says, I betrayed her because it should have come from me first. And how dare I, was they not told? She won't apologize, won't admit that they're bullshitting shit for other people. Why was I placed in a situation of finding this by accident? Why the secret? Well, news fucking flash. Not only would I've never thought to call you a decade and a half ago, but just a quick question. Who the fuck are you to wonder why I didn't tell you? When you say you're a longtime watcher of my program, and almost everybody knows this about me, where the fuck were you? I think the questions belong over here, not on your side. But there you go, folks. Now you know the modern legend of the actor who audited Arizona and other modern fables. But I do find it interesting at a time when I am hammering on Georgia, and I'm hammering on the system, and I'm hammering on President Trump to do what's right. Isn't it amazing that these bullshit stories designed to discredit me all of a sudden come out again? Do you think that's a coincidence? No, it's a battle tactic. And it's always been going on. Share this program. Love you all. Can't undo it. That's number one. So the president does not have to declare, hey, I want this under critical infrastructure. It is done. All the president does, he has to ask nobody's permission. None. Zero. He just has to do it. All these states have been showing illegals on the voter rolls. All these states have been showing the massive numbers of people that are on the voter rolls that shouldn't be there. They are showing the motor voter crisis that put this on. He doesn't need to do any of this. It's already done. It means he has sole responsibility and fiduciary duty to protect the United States of America. And all he has to do is say, I have determined that our critical infrastructure in the United States of America under our elections has been compromised. We have evidence, state after state after state. Therefore, I am stating, effective immediately, because we cannot guarantee the integrity of our voter rolls, we are immediately shutting down the voter rolls. Now, this will not affect your ability to vote. If you are an American citizen and you have a valid ID and you are a registered voter, this will not affect your ability to vote. This in no way blocks anybody's vote. But we cannot guarantee your vote will count. We cannot guarantee your vote will not be canceled by the vote of an illegal. Therefore, we are taking measures to protect you, the American people. And the only way we can do that is to temporarily block the use of the nation's voter rolls under critical infrastructure, Code 42. The elections will still go exactly as they've always gone. You will be able to vote. If you are an American citizen and can legally vote, you will be able to vote. And it won't matter if you're gay or straight, black, brown, or purple, you will still be able to vote. But in order to protect you, your rights, your liberty, your freedom, America's laws, and America's Constitution, you're going to have to do your part. And you are going to walk in to vote in the midterms, because we cannot guarantee you that our systems are clean enough that your vote won't be compromised. And we don't want anybody's votes compromised. Therefore, in participating with this country, you'll simply take your ID during the midterms and you will go in and vote. We hope you understand that this is to protect you, because we know, whether it's Democrat, Independent, Republican, or otherwise, that our nation's voting structure and system and its integrity is important to you. And just like every Democrat says, we don't want any suppression of the vote. We don't want anybody votes harmed. We don't want anybody, their vote canceled because they voted illegally. Therefore, in order to protect every single citizen of this nation, as part of critical infrastructure, we are immediately shutting down the use of our voter rolls because we know they have been compromised. We are beginning an investigation in every single state of each voter roll. And as my power of the president, I assure you, we will make sure that our voter rolls, before they come back online, are safe and secure. But you do not vote because you're on the voter rolls. You vote because you're an American citizen. So with this temporary suspension of the voter rolls, it does not block your opportunity to vote. Nothing changes that. You are an American citizen. You will be allowed to vote no matter what city, what state, or wherever you are. We're going to protect you. We're going to protect this country. And now it's up to you to do your part, to get out in the midterms, bring in your ID, and make sure you vote. We will get to the bottom of this, and we will protect every single citizen with no regard for race, color, or creed. And that's my job as President of the United States of America. We hope to make it pass. We hope to get it done. But be prepared. This may happen in the midterms. But I assure you, as long as I'm president, we will get it fixed and we will bring these back online. That's the message President Trump has to deliver.
Our courts are based on clear and convincing evidence. Want convictions? Want justice? For what happened in the 2020 election? Then we need your help. Not fixing 2020 will damn our nation forever. The decision you make in the next few moments could decide whether we ever get our elections fixed or not. Here's why. Trump campaign and allies filed 64 different lawsuits. They all went down in flames. 100% of these cases were presented on "It's the machines," or "The machines changed the votes," or "The voting company executive said he would make sure Donald J. Trump would not win." They all went down in flames. Why? You can't bring theories to court as evidence. No supposed Zoom call or six-degree polynomial math theory or census data is or ever will be proof of fraud. You can't bring theories to court as evidence. Here's why. In both civil and criminal law, the side making a claim carries the burden of proof, and prosecutors must prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Without physical or otherwise verifiable evidence, a case cannot meet this high threshold. Physical evidence is the key. The question is, did anyone get relevant, reliable, provable, testable, and duplicatable evidence of what really happened in the 2020 general election? And the answer is yes, absolutely. The full forensic audit of Maricopa County, Arizona is the only evidence-gathering work which gathered relevant, reliable, provable, testable, and duplicatable evidence of what really happened in the 2020 general election. Evidence so damning that the system, the deep state, and those who pull the strings of this country have fought to keep it hidden and have hoped to have it be forgotten to time. Almost $3 million invested in time, funds, and efforts to unlock that which the system wanted hidden. But now, that evidence is in danger of being lost forever. So if you want what happened in the 2020 election fixed, then we need your help. Please donate to protect and secure this historic evidence. With the 2026 midterms coming up, the system is going to try to lame duck President Trump and then most likely introduce new impeachment proceedings. This is the evidence which will help win the war which is surely to come. We need to keep Maricopa County full forensic investigation and archive secure and ongoing. So if you want what happened in the 2020 election fixed, then we need your help. Please donate to protect and secure this historic evidence. We need your help securing the full forensic audit archives. Don't allow the only testable, objective, and reliable 2020 election evidence fall into obscurity. Millions were spent on getting it documented and tested. This is historic evidence. Not fixing 2020 will damn our nation forever. The historic Maricopa County full forensic audit effort processed 20,895,610 digital and forensic images of varying formats, resulted in 208 million individual evidence-proof files. The system processed over 58 billion forensic measurements, resulting in over 2 trillion individual base computations. No hopium, no hype, just hardcore forensic evidence. Please make sure the Maricopa County full forensic audit archives survive. Donate now. So if you want what happened in the 2020 election fixed, then please donate to protect and secure this historic evidence. We can't do it without you. We need you. America needs you. Our future needs you. Please donate now. Not fixing 2020 will damn our nation forever. Please donate now.